Hello and welcome back to Echo. Last we saw, I believe it was Duke, came up to the diner where Leo and Chase were having a little discussion and confronted them and ended up shooting Janice. So that's where we're gonna start off. I close my eyes. How did this happen? Just seconds ago, Leo and I were arguing, and now I'm about to fucking die. I keep my eyes tightly closed, hugging to Leo as hard as I can, and wait. But nothing happens. I keep my face pressed into Leo's chest, though, wondering if I'm already dead. Finally, Duke speaks up. Leo, out. Otter, you stay. I feel Leo hesitate against me, then his lips press against my ear. It'll be okay, baby. Just stay here. Slowly, he untangles my arm from around him, and with his hands up, he pushes out from under the table and stands up. Face the wall. Leo hesitates, and Duke growls. I ain't gonna fucking kill you. We're just figuring out what's happening is all. Killing you doesn't fix anything. The last guy got killed, and that didn't fix shit. You shot Janice. 'Cause she got in my fucking way. But it don't matter. Everything's fucked up now. Leo turns to face the wall slowly. I watch from the space between the table and the booth. What do you want? To fix this fucking town. You're starting something with the otter. This has all happened before. Duke looks out the window and makes a come on motion with his hand. We're gonna stop it from happening this time. Leo looks to the left. But you fucking killed Janice. I hear the wolf's voice break slightly. That doesn't matter in the long run. The door rattles as someone comes in. You got the zip ties? Hands behind your back, Leo. Leo looks at whoever just came in. Come on. Now! Slowly, Leo does as he's told, and I see a pair of massive paws reach forward to bind the wolf's wrists. I swallow hard as I watch Brian pull the zip ties tight. Duke puts a forearm on his nose. Fuck, he stink. I hope you didn't kill that ringtail. We could use him. Brian just grins in response, his teeth yellow. My heart sinks as I think about Clint. Had he been warning me to run? Why had I thought that him hanging from a tree like that was probably just a normal thing for him and the bear? Was he a victim of whatever crazy has just hit the town? That must have been what was going on. All of this is hitting at once. It can't be a coincidence. Clint was probably just as scared as I am now. Grab the otter and tie him up. Just stick him in your trailer for now. My stomach drops. Duke gestures with a gun again. Come on, out. My legs are lead. I can't move. Leo looks over my shoulder at me, and the fear in his eyes scares me even more. His muzzle moves, mouthing something. Run. But still, I can't move. I've never been so scared in my life. It's like everything is numb. Brian doesn't care though and moves forward, the look on his face eager. The gun goes off again. Everyone, including Brian, jumps, and I hit the floor with my hands over my head. Fuck! I look up and see Duke, eyes extra wide, dancing around, pointing the gun upwards at the ceiling. Fuck, you see that? She's crawling around up there. I told you she's on the ceiling every night watching me. Brian looks up too, and for the first time, his face is twisted into an expression that isn't stupidly green-in. It's full of fear. But when I look up, I see nothing. Chase! Leo hisses at me and jolts me back to reality. Even without willing myself to do it, I shoot out from under the table. In front of me are two exits, the front door and the kitchen door, which is closer. There has to be an exit in the kitchen, but I'm not sure of that. My legs are completely making me run though. Already making me run though, and I have to choose now. The front or the kitchen? I mean, there has to be an exit in the kitchen, right? Although I don't think I've ever gone for the front door. Let's go to the kitchen. I have no idea how long Duke will be distracted, so I dive behind the counter for my closest exit. Don't look back, Chase. Go as fast as you can. Shit, he's getting away, Brian. I push past the swinging door and I immediately slip. One moment I'm standing and the next I'm lying in the ground, face stinging from the smack into the tile. I stare beerily at the ground, forcing myself to move again, but it's still so slippery. At first I think the tiles are just red, but when the overpowering metallic scent hits my nose, I realize it's more than that. Blood is everywhere and now I'm covered in it. I sob, wondering when the nightmare is gonna end, when the paralysis will hit me. Fuck! Get her off of me! I force myself to move because I need to get the fuck out of there, dream or not. I slip and slide along the tile, trying to stand, almost failing. I manage to grab the metal counter and yank myself up. And then I'm standing over the counter and over what's on top of it. A pile of meat. I can see the fur, but it's a mound of unrecognizable parts. Butchered. Something cooks on the stove. My stomach churns and I heave, but there's nothing in me to come up. A bang behind me forces me to turn to my right. I see the monstrous form of Brian charge through the door. He slips immediately, but his momentum still takes him forward and he reaches out to me. Next thing I know is that I've been hit by a car and I'm flying back. I stop short of hitting the ground thanks to the wall behind me and my head explodes. The darkness that surrounds me is painful. I feel like I'm floating in a black sea and nothing about it is comforting or peaceful. It's like a fitful doze when you have a really bad fever. It feels awful and murky and sick. I feel my head tilt back and a lightning bolt arches through my head. I try to open my eyes, but they only manage to flutter and I see flashes of red above me. Something is hooked under my back and I'm dangling from it. I imagine a rope tied around me, holding me above the dark abyss below. Is this hell? I grit my teeth as the searing red becomes too much to look at and I close my eyes again. This must be a nightmare, one that feels too real. I've had them before and I know how to deal with them. Just need to go back to sleep, to drift off, and I'll wake back up in the morning in my bed. Go back to sleep, wake up back in my dorm. Wait, an echo? I try to think, try to prod back into my memories. Where was I last? What was the last thing I remember doing? Trying to remember is monumental, more than I can handle, and fortunately I drift back into unconsciousness. I'm pulled back into the sickly dark as something jolts my body. I grimace and gasp. I'm filled with such a feeling of unprovoked loneliness and despair that I actually feel my eyes watering and a sob escapes my mouth. I hear a soft chuckle above me and I go quiet. I still don't know where I am or what's going on at all, but that laugh is enough to tell me that I don't want to be where I am. The feeling of hanging from a rope is gone now. Instead, I'm lying on something flat and hard, and my arms and legs are spread out. The air is cool now and my skin is cold and wet, like I've been sweating a lot. The feeling is especially strong along my back, and I want to roll over, but I can't. Something is holding my arms down, and there's a rattling sound when I try to move. I moan and try to open my eyes again, though it's almost like they're glued shut. With a little more effort, I manage to crack one open. At first, all I see is a blur of colors above me, and I have to blink a few times to clear it. Slowly, the image comes together and I'm able to make out that someone is there above me. I feel my blood run cold, realizing that someone has been watching me this whole time. But I'm lying down. How is someone on the ceiling? I try to speak, but only a dry, crackling squeak comes out of my throat. At this point, my vision has cleared enough to make out an otter. An otter? I squint. A blue shirt, beige pants. I gasp and reflexively try to draw back from the thing. Was it me? It smiles. It's missing my goatee. How? The flat surface I'm lying on tilts precariously and my stomach lurches. I try to clutch at the surface, though there's nothing to grab onto. I shut my eyes and gag as I feel my stomach swirling around inside me. All I can do is pray for it to stop, feeling like everything around me is about to fall over. The ache in my head is magnified tenfold, and tears start to leak from my eyes. Just when I think I'm about to slip off the face of the earth, the ground starts to tilt back the other way. I swallow and gasp for air, my entire body shaking and sweating all over again. I feel like I've been swimming too long and my body is exhausted. What the hell is going on? I remember that someone was staring down at me from the ceiling, and I open my eyes again, fearful. I cringe as I see that same otter staring down at me, the otter that's clearly wearing the same clothes that I am. But now it's not smiling. A tear-stained expression is on its face. It's a mirror. A mirror on the ceiling? I try to sit up but come up short, gagging as something tightens around my neck. I try to move my hands to whatever it is, and that doesn't work either. That same rattling sound I heard earlier makes me look towards the right hand, and what I see makes my blood freeze. Around my wrist is what looks like a leather strap. I desperately look at my other hand and find the same result. Looking at my feet, I see the same contraptions fixed to my ankles. When I try to lift one of my feet, I see the metal glinting from underneath, making me think that the leather is bolted into the platform. Panic rises up in my chest, and I kick my feet and try to flail my hands, but the straps hold firm into what looks like wooden planks. The platform that I'm laying on. They're arranged in a way that leave me spread eagle. Over the leather, I can smell all kinds of musk, though the strongest one reminds me of Clint. I try to lift up my head, but the thing around my throat is too tight, and it instantly makes me choke again. My head throbs. Tears start to form in my eyes again as I try to think back. What the fuck am I? Is this a prank of some kind? Maybe my friends at the dorm trying to scare me? Had I been drinking at a party? No, wait. I'm in Echo. That's the last place I remember being. I'm here for a project and I've been with my old friends. I was with Leo, and I'd been at the diner. Suddenly, all the horrible things that had happened that day come rushing back. Janice, Clint, Brian, the gun. Oh my god. Had that really happened? I struggle a bit more, then try to think. I had run to Leo's house. Leo, I don't know what happened to him. I left him with Duke. And then Brian, he'd been chasing me, and he tried to break in. I start to breathe heavily again as I realize where I might be. Brian got into the house when I was in Leo's room. He attacked me. I look around. I'm in a small room, what looks like a living room of some kind. There's a couch to my right, and a wall with a clock on it on the left, ticking away. There's a window too, and along with the ticking, the wind blowing inside is the only other sound that I can hear. Looking down towards my legs, I can see what looks like a tiny kitchen with some cupboards and a countertop. Dishes and junk are piled high along the length of the counter, and it smells like cigarette smoke. Judging by the layout and size of this place, it looks like I'm in a trailer home. A small moan of terror escapes my lips. I'm in Brian's house. I remember Kud telling me that he lived in one. Tears start leaking out of my eyes again, even though the crying is making my head throb all over again. All I can think about is what he's doing to Clint. Or what he was doing. No, I have to calm down. I don't want to attract any attention if he's actually nearby. After what happened in the diner, the cops have to be on their way if they aren't already here. People ate at the diner all the time. One of my friends probably would find it and call someone. I just have to wait until they find me. I swallow again, feeling my body break into a cold sweat all over again. What's going on? They wanted something from us. I remember that, at least. But what? Duke had been saying something about seeing things and that we might be responsible. I squeeze my eyes shut and shake my head, but then immediately stop when my head throbs from the movement. None of this makes any sense at all. Am I still dreaming? At that moment, I hear a soft mumbling in the distance through the thin walls of the trailer. I freeze and hold my breath. It's a little ways off, but I am almost positive that it's Duke. The high Weasley whine mixed with the occasional smoker's cough is unmistakable. It's coming closer, and I start to make out what he's saying. Because we're already fucked up. You think we can let them go and that it'll all be fine? I don't know who he's talking to, but the sound of an accompanying heavy, lumbering steps gives me an idea. It's worth it though, if we can figure out what the fuck is going on. It sounds like they're right up against the trailer now. I can hear them walking around it, towards a small door on the right side of the kitchen. Leo ain't saying shit, but I think it might be the otter. He's the one I've seen last week. The footsteps stop in front of the door, and I listen hard, my heart pounding in my chest. I hope you haven't done anything to him. I didn't. Brian's uncharacteristically high-pitched voice sends a chill up my spine, my fur flaring out with it. You bet your ass you haven't, if you do any of your fucked up shit to him. I stop breathing, staring at my terrified expression in the mirror. What am I saying? Is we still got a chance to get out of this. No, what I'm saying is we still got a chance. What we've done is bad enough, but if we can get him to understand... They stop talking, and that's when I can hear Brian's heavy, labored breathing. I'm not breathing at all, worried that they'll be able to hear it, even though they already know I'm here. I let it out with a gasp as the door suddenly swings open and Duke comes up the steps, looking around before spotting me. Brian, you're one sick fuck. I tense up as a massive shadow appears behind him, and it feels like the entire trailer tips a bit as Brian makes his way up the same steps. Brian's presence is so imposing and frightening that I don't even notice Duke is now right next to me. I jump when he sets his hand on my left arm. I jerk my head to look at him, wide-eyed. Hey, calm down. We ain't gonna hurt ya. Brian chuckles and Duke shoots him a look. He turns his attention back to me, softening his expression, at least as much as he can, with his scraggly, drugged, fucked face. We just need some information from you. I open my mouth to speak, but all that comes out is a dry squeak. Brian chuckles again and makes his way to stand to my right. I cringe away from him and his stench of old sweat as he grins down at me with his yellow teeth. Brian, get some fucking water. Brian looks at Duke with his strange face before turning back to the kitchen. Hey, don't worry about him. I know this thing... Duke taps on one of the boards with his fingers. Looks bad, but we just gotta hold you here for a bit. He's a queer. He likes it. Duke glares at him as Brian comes back from the kitchen with a ceramic mug. You're a queer too. Brian visibly bristles and his face loses any of that sick humor it once had. Duke clears his throat. Things have been happening here, and we want to find out why. What? Duke furrows his brows like a kid trying to figure out something difficult. You see, people ain't right in the head here. No shit. Duke seems to immediately read my thought process because he holds up his hands and shakes his head. Yeah, I know. What we're doing ain't exactly right in the head either. Brian gives his dumb chuckle again, but I keep my face averted from him, partly because I don't want to stand in the smell. But we're all a little fucked up here. What I'm talking about is something else, like what you saw with Janice. I shift a little as I'm reminded about what happened in the diner. Is she dead? Duke looks genuinely sad. I don't know, and it's a damn shame, but you saw the way she came at me. That's the shit I'm talking about. I look at the weasel's waistband and immediately see the handgun tucked into his pants there. And I was hoping to stop it before any of this happened, but now everything's gone to shit. Brian finishes for him, and I can feel him move closer to the platform I'm laying on. Again, I avoid eye contact, not wanting to provoke him in any way. Yep, and it's only gonna get worse. Duke just looks at me like that's all the information that I need. I I don't know what you're talking about. I see a twitch of irritation in Duke's face, and I hold my breath. I mean, what's happening out there? Duke shakes his head. What's happening everywhere? It wasn't just Janice that lost her mind. Duke looks back at the window, suddenly, his fur standing on end. I look too, but all I can see are the leaves and branches, the late afternoon sun filtering through them. Duke's quiet for a while before he starts speaking again without turning around. It happened to my granddaddy, my daddy. Now it's happening to me. I close my eyes, wondering if Duke is just as crazy as Janice was. If he does, I doubt he'll even have a clue what he's doing right now. Dale's missing. Cynthia drove off into the desert. Duke turns around to look back at me. We saw your cat friend running down the street on the way here, saying someone is after him. TJ? Thing is, we've all got something after us. Something bad. Won't let you leave when it starts. What's after you? I flinch as Brian speaks, just above me, leaning down towards my face. I don't know what you guys are talking about. Bullshit. I flinch again as Duke's concerned demeanor immediately drops away. Why do you think we came to get Leo and you? He pauses, like I should actually know the answer. I feel myself starting to panic again, with these two crazy hillbillies looming over my body. I don't know what... Duke slaps me, and I gasp in shock. I saw you hanging around this fucking town before you even got here, late at night, lurking around. I'm still cringing from the slap, and I keep my eyes closed, as if not seeing any of this is going to make it stop. And then once all your friends got here, all hell breaks loose. You think that's a fucking coincidence? It's quiet for a moment, and all I can hear is the rush of blood in my ears. Is this really happening? I feel Duke touch my arm again, and I flinch in fear. Hey. I feel like he wants me to look at him, so I slowly open my eyes, tears spilling out as I do. The blurry shape of Duke dances in front of me. I'm not saying you did it, or that you wanted it to happen. I don't say anything because I don't know what he's talking about, but I know I can't tell him that. It's just that you gotta know something, anything, so that we can stop this. Duke starts to pet my arm, and I shiver. Brian is breathing heavily next to me, and a glance at him shows that his expression is more interested now, almost eager. Duke still hasn't answered my question. It makes no sense that they'd go so far as to kidnap us. But why didn't you just ask us? Why all of this? I lift my hands weakly, making the platform rattle. Duke's face darkens. Because I've been asking Leo all week what the fuck you guys are doing, and he wouldn't say shit. Duke stops petting my arm and scratches behind his head. And, someone told me that you would know. I stare at him. Who? Someone I know, and it makes sense. Something bad happens, and if you don't fix it, it won't stop coming after you. I shut my eyes and almost sob, saying they know, and I thought it had been Leo or you, considering what I've been seeing these past few weeks. Duke pauses. Or maybe one of your other friends. My mind briefly flashes to TJ. I don't know what you're talking about. I wait for another slap, but it doesn't come. I open my eyes again, and Duke is looking back out the window. We're kind of protecting you too. I stare at the back of his head. Things are getting worse out there, and if we don't figure something out, we're all gonna die. Duke's voice is dead and distant. Brian, though, touches my other arm, and I gasp, shrinking away. He's smirking down at me, looking at my stomach, or crotch, somewhere around there. Brian, stop! Duke is turned back around, looking over me at the bear. We're not getting anywhere right now, and I gotta get back to the wolf. Even though Duke is the one that hit me, I'm terrified at the thought of being left alone with Brian. Duke sees my face. Don't worry, Chase. Even though you're lying to us, I don't plan to let this pervert have his way with you. Brian snorts. Brian knows what will happen if he does. Duke gives Brian a cold, callous stare, and this time Brian doesn't give his stupid grin back. But you'd better hope your fuck buddy says something soon, because if not, we might have to get mean. Duke heads to the door, turning to look over his shoulder. Just feed him and make sure he doesn't escape. That's it. With that, Duke briskly disappears out the door, a golden flash of afternoon light lighting up the dim trailer. Brian and I listen to the weasel's soft and anxious footsteps recede into the distance. As soon as the sound is gone, Brian stands up. I turn my head in time to see him whirl around and smash a fist into the wall. I jump as much as I can in my restraints before he does it again, this time slamming both of his fists against the wall. Fuck, no. It has to be high-pitched. Fucking faggot! He screams so loud my ears immediately start ringing. I think he's talking to me, so I brace myself for what I'm sure is going to be the worst moment in my life. But he stalks right past me, not even looking at me. Instead, he strides up the kitchen counter. Once there, he picks up a dirty pan, then raises it over his head before bringing it down into a crash. I hear glasses shatter before he does it again, and again. I'm gonna hate doing this voice. Goddamn cocksucking piece of shit! He throws a pan across the room to crash into the wall. I'll fucking kill him! I'll kill that fucking... I'm not gonna say that word. Out of all the words I won't say, the one word. I stare at him, my eyes wide as I watch him stamp his feet like a little kid. Then he slaps himself across the face twice. After that, he closes his hands into a fist and punches himself in the head repeatedly. It's with a force that would knock me out cold. It might be funny if I wasn't tied down to a contraption in the trailer belonging to Brian. Brian stumbles after what seems like the fifth blow and covers his face. His massive shoulders shake with sobs. Thinks he can do whatever the fuck he wants? Thinks he can boss me around? Brian whirls around and slams both of his fists into the counter several more times, the sound of shifting glass accompanying it. I'll kill him! Kill him! Kill him! His voice crescendos in the pitch and volume before he finally slumps against the counter, head in his hands as he starts crying again. I breathe as quietly as I can, not wanting to draw any attention to myself. My God, I'm gonna have to do that voice for 2 more rounds, I think. I'll get him! I'll fucking get him! Won't control me anymore! Suddenly, his quaking shoulders freeze. Slowly, he turns, and with a sinking heart, I realize he's looking right at me. The fur on his cheeks, almost matted before, are now flat and shiny with wet. Snot runs from his nose down into his upper lip. Then I see red dripping from his left fist. The fur on his right is matted with blood as well. He watches me for a while, then grins. Am I funny to you? Kind of. I open my mouth, but nothing comes out. He suddenly strides right up to the end of my platform, standing between my spreading legs. I feel numb, the fear taking up every fiber of my being. I feel nothing else. You like seeing him make fun of me? I try to speak again, but still nothing comes out. I swallow. No. My lips tremble and my voice shakes. I've never stuttered so hard in my life. You know what I'd do to you if I could? Brian sneers down at me, the wet fur on his cheeks bristling out. Oh. Oh, I swear to God, I'd fucking tear your balls off right now. This actually hurts my throat a little. He rests a huge hand on my crotch and presses down. I cringe and whine. Please. Brian grins only, gets bigger, and he rubs his crotch with his other hand as he watches me wince. Oh God, you already know how to beg. Oh good. He leans forward towards my face, moving my hand to clamp over my mouth. And then I'd hang you for hours. I stare at him, breathing hard through my nose, tears leaking down the side of my face. His hand slides down from my mouth to my neck, and he starts to squeeze. Then I'd give you a little stool to stand on when you start to go out. Then I kick it away again. I gasp and gag, both from the squeezing and from his reeking breath. He stares hard at me, and I can feel his crotch grinding up against mine. He's hard. Then he blinks and slowly pulls back. He watches me gasp and sob for a while before reaching down again. I try to turn my head away, letting out a moan of terror, but he doesn't grab my neck again. Instead, he prods and teases my fur, checking the skin on my neck. Better not to bruise. If that fucking cocksucker saw that. His expression darkens again. If you fucking tell Duke about this. He raises a fist, and I cringe. No, I won't, I swear. I turn my head away, eyeing his raised fist. He holds it there for a while, watching me. He seems to be calculating something, like he's wondering if he can get away with what he's about to do. Then he seems to make up his mind. Good. With that, he slams his fist down, right into the center of my torso, just below the ribs. My vision flashes, and I hear a rasping, droning wheeze that I realize is coming from my mouth. It goes on and on until there's no air left in me, and then I can't breathe in again. My vision goes black as I suffocate, writhing against the restraints, wanting to curl up into a little ball and disappear. It feels like hours, days. Finally, I get a sip of air. My mouth gasps as I try to suck in faster. Brian is standing over me, and I'm somehow surprised that he's got a worried look on his face. He probably thinks he's killed me. But then my stomach starts to turn and lurch. Before I've even realized I'm about to puke, a gush of vomit fills my mouth and I start to choke. Shit! Brian hurries to my side, and as I'm giving a second heave mixed with a gag, he tips the platform over sideways. His huge paw pushes my face to the side to look to the ground, and I watch as it spills to the ugly shag carpet. When I finish, Brian slowly tilts the table back up, looking at me with disgust. At this point, I'm too tired to cry. Instead, I lay there in a daze, occasionally hacking or coughing. Brian goes to the kitchen, rustling around a while before returning with water and paper towels. He wipes my face and nose before tilting my head up to drink the water. Rinse and spit! He holds the mug there before I do as he says. Then he gets down to his knees. I watch his head bob up and down as he busies himself with the mess on the floor, muttering about Duke finding out. I'm too numb to really care right now, though. Right now, I'm starting to realize that I might not survive this. Brian calms down pretty quick after his tantrum. Once he clears up the mess, he splays out on the couch and starts watching TV. It's some kind of cartoon about a pink cat, and he actually laughs along with the juvenile jokes. While this goes on, I lay quietly against my platform, trying not to start crying again. My mind keeps wandering back just hours ago, how everything seemed fine for the most part. I keep wishing I could go back to the beginning of this week. Thinking about that makes me sentimental, and I'm longing to see Leo, TJ, Carl, Jenna, and even Flynn again. Where are they all right now? Duke said things were bad out there. Are they all in the same sort of trouble? If that's the case, the cops should be here by now. Someone would have gotten the word out, wouldn't they? If people were murdering each other, like what happened to Janice, there's no way that wouldn't be the case. Brian lets out another explosive laugh, wiggling his feet on the armrest of the couch. Earlier, he tried to feed me some dried cereal, but it was like cardboard in my mouth, and after only a handful, I couldn't eat anymore. I'm just thankful that he's preoccupied with something else right now. There's a soft knock on the door, and Brian jumps, quickly changing the channel to golf before he gets up and lumbers over to the door. He pauses, then rifles through some magazines on a small table next to the couch. He pulls out a handgun, that looks cartoonishly small in his hands before making his way to the door. I weakly turned my head in his direction and watched Brian open the door a crack. He chuckles. World's going to shit and you're still coming here for more, eh? Brian pushes the door open a little bit more and I catch sight of a skinny, malnourished polecat. Clint is looking up at Brian, appearing even more disheveled than usual. So, are we doing? Clint had stepped up onto the first step and looks into the trailer, immediately spotting me. He stares, the shock on his face almost comical. Brian turns to see what he's looking at, as if he'd forgotten that I was even there. He gives a start before shoving Clint back out the door. I'm full today. Already got someone taking your spot. Clint now out of the line of sight, but I can hear him shuffling around in the dead vegetation. Please, I really need something right now. We can do it outside. There's a moment of silence as Brian seems to contemplate that. No. I got some business to take care of. Tomorrow, maybe. If you're all alive. Clint starts to whine again, but Brian swings the door shut with a bang. Fucking dopehead. Brian walks back into the room, looking down at me, then back at the TV. Probably shouldn't let him see you, though. He mumbles before sitting back down and switching the channel back to the cartoon. I stare up at my reflection. Even from here, I can see that my eyes are bloodshot, the fur on my face matted. There are dark spots on my shirt too, and distantly I wonder if Brian had broken my ribs when he punched me. Then I remember that his hand had been bleeding when he did that. I feel strange right now, numb. It kind of feels good after the whirl of emotions I had earlier. I still haven't caught up with everything that's happening since I was in that diner. Would I ever be able to? Would I have time if Brian planned to? A tinge of panic pierces through my fog of disassociation, and I clench my eyes shut, screwing up my face as I try not to start crying again. Brian snorts again at something on TV. I open my eyes to the distraught otter laying on the wooden torture contraption. Why is there a mirror on your ceiling? I surprise myself a little by asking the question. Apparently, I really don't give a fuck at this point. I see Brian look over at me from my peripheral vision. You already want to know? I shrug the best I can, continuing to stare passively up at the ceiling. The movement sends electric tingles through my arm, which are completely numb at this point. Well? Brian shifts around on the couch as he tries to get a better look at me. When I has my fun, I like them to see what I'm doing. I stare up at the mirror, my expression still blank. I mean, it's not just about what I'm feeling. What they're feeling is important too. Fear. That's what Brian likes. Sure, I can choke you all I want and cut you all I want, but when I do that, you're not thinking about what's actually happening. Brian shifts into a sitting position, now more interested in our conversation than his cartoons. I realize now that I've probably made a mistake. You bet your shoes you did. Want to see? I keep my face blank, staring at myself. I don't say anything. Brian gets up anyway and comes around to stand over me, above my head, blocking my view of the mirror. His reeking stench fills my nostrils, but still, I try not to give him the satisfaction of seeing how afraid I'm starting to become. His massive hands reach around my head and start to fiddle with something I can't see. With one quick motion, the straps come back down over my neck and my eyes widen. I grip my teeth and try to press my head as hard as I can into the platform, pressing my head to lessen the strain. Pressing the head behind to lessen the strain. It's not a lot of pressure, but it's enough to make me want to gag. Brian chuckles again. See, you're probably only thinking about how it's hard to breathe right now, just trying to figure out how to make it stop. But... Brian leans back, revealing a terror-stricken otter on the ceiling, his eyes bulging, teeth bared. Now you can see what's happening to you. Your brain's telling you, yeah, this is really fucking happening. The leather squeaks a little as he pulls it down tighter. I start to writhe at this point, and I see my tongue sticking out, my face a mask of horror. You feel more, and that's what I like. Brian comes back into my vision, his expression different. He's really searching my face now, like he's looking for something. Maybe you like it too. Finally, with a final squeak of leather, Brian lets go, and I gasp hungrily for air. Brian pets my head while I cough and gasp for breath. Don't exaggerate, that was nothing. He moves away again and slumps back into the couch, pulling at his crotch. Your buddy Clint gets it way worse. I choose not to stare at the choking otter on the ceiling and instead look out the window, feeling fresh tears roll down my face. I'm not sure if it's from the choking or the black hole in my chest. I watch the leaves rustling around in the wind and think about where the others are, why no one's come to help. Finally, I turn my head back to the ceiling. The blank expression has returned. Brian continues to chuckle at his cartoons, and despite myself, I ask another question. Oh my god, you dumbass. Have you ever killed someone? For the first time, Brian ignores me. I don't say anything for the rest of the day. I think that's a big yes. I stare into the darkness, the only faint source of light coming from the moonlit leaves through the window. It's been less than 24 hours since I've been kidnapped. Still, it makes no sense that someone hasn't found me. Is what Duke said about the town true? I wonder what Leo's doing right now, if what he's going through is just as bad. I doubt it. I doubt it is. At least Duke seemed slightly less unhinged. I give a soft, trembling sigh, my head still throbbing from the day's events. The thunderous snore from Brian is literally shaking the platform I'm on, and though I drift off a few times, I can't sleep. He's right next to me, his stained couch apparently doubling as his bed. I shift around in the contraption for what feels like the 100th time, trying to get comfortable, when I feel something. There's more give in my right arm than I remember. In fact, it's incredibly loose. I pause, then experimentally wiggle my arms around before easily pulling my hand out of the restraint. I freeze, disbelieving, not wanting to believe, in case it isn't true somehow. Painfully, I crane my neck to look at my right arm. Though it's dark, I can see that my arm is clearly free, my elbow on the board, hand in the air. I swallow hard, listening to Brian's snores again to make sure he's actually asleep. I try to keep my breath even, not wanting to make any more sound than I need to, but I'm almost sobbing with relief at this point. Now I'm able to partially sit up and make short work of my left arm restraint. Fully sitting up now, I do away with the final 2 ankle restraints and slide off the table quietly. Brian is still snoring at full volume, and it covers up what little sound I make. Making my way over to the messy floor, I find the steps and try not to stumble down them to open the door. Incredibly, there's no squeaking or rattling as I do, and before I know it, I'm outside in the cool air. I run through the woods and onto the road, sobbing with joy now as I see Leo's house. The lights are on, and as I'm running towards it, I think I even see Carl's horns through the window. I run up the steps onto the porch and bang on the door. Leo! Carl! I got out! Open the door! I try the handle and it opens, swinging inward into blackness. I stare, trying to comprehend. You really fell for that? I hear my own voice, but it isn't me that said it. Instead, it's higher pitched, like I'm hearing it from a video recording rather than my own throat. Then I'm sucked into the blackness and slapped hard back down onto a wooden platform. All at once, I realize what's happened, and my heart feels like it drops through the platform. Of course, a dream. I'm back in the hot, stifling trailer, and it looks even darker than it did in my dream. I close my eyes and start to cry quietly. It feels like I've just found out that I'm locked up in a Psycho's trailer all over again. I turn my head and look out the window above Brian, longing for some daylight. And then, I see 2 white eyes set against a black face, staring back in at me. jump. What the fuck? Am I still dreaming? Then I see the two beige-colored ears above the head. Kudzu? I gasp again, quieter. I'm overcome with relief again, but the fear that I'm still dreaming is almost overpowering it. I wave my left hand as much as I can, but I'm not sure if he can see it. I realize that none of the lights from the window is falling on me. Kudzu moves to the side, then back again, squinting, clearly trying to see inside. I think about making a noise, calling out his name, but I have no idea how deep of a sleeper Brian is. As if on cue, Brian gives a loud snore and rolls over. Kudzu seems to have heard it, his big ears perking up before he ducks down. My heart hurts just losing sight of him, and I strain at my bonds. Brian seems to be waking up, though, mumbling something in his sleep. No, you're dead. I pull my right arm again in case my dream had been on to something. It doesn't budge. Fucking... Brian's really starting to kick around now, his massive form rolling over onto his stomach, rubbing his face into the pillow. He starts to make loud, gasping sounds, and he gets to his knees on the bed. Back off! He holds his hands up, snarling. Allergies. You're dead! You're dead! I stare at him, almost forgetting about Kudzu. His eyes are open and they snap to me, his hands still out. No! His face is etched with horror, eyes wide and white in the darkness. He backs up against the back of the couch as he continues to stare. Allergies. I stare back at him, unsure of what he's going to do. After about 10 seconds, his expression starts to melt from horror to confusion. I continue to stare back, bracing for another explosion from him, for whatever reason. His shoulders droop again, and he frowns at me. What? Did you see her? My mouth is dry, so I try to swallow a few times before I can answer. Who? Brian doesn't respond, and starts to look around the trailer. I see Kudzu starting to poke his head up again. At this point, I've made it up in my mind that I want to escape tonight. I'm not going to spend another minute with this maniac. Making a decision that could mean life or death so suddenly is terrifying and exhilarating. I don't give myself time to think about it. Brian. He doesn't answer, starting to get up and look around. Brian, I have to go to the bathroom. Brian sighs as he flips on the light. Kudzu drops out of view again. Brian heaves a huge sigh before turning to the counter. He reaches for a pan and dumps out some murky water into the sink. I wrinkle my nose. He shrugs at me. What? This will do. No, I have to use your toilet. My stomach is feeling really bad right now. Brian turns, really looks at me. Like what? You gonna puke? I shift on the platform. No, I think I have diarrhea. Brian pulls a look of extreme disgust, which is kind of funny for someone who apparently never showers. Oh, come on! He glares at me like it's my fault I might be sick. I look around for a while, then back at the pan. The bear seems to quickly disregard that idea and sets it back down on the counter. He comes over to me and starts to undo the restraints. If you try anything... No, I promise. I just really need to go. Brian grumbles as he starts to roughly undo my restraints. I take care not to look at his crotch as he presses it up uncomfortably close to my face. As he pulls my right arm out, I gasp in shock and pain. It feels like a million needles poke through it as he pushes my arm down next to my body. Wait, fuck. Brian pauses as he watches me grimace in pain, and I worry he's getting off on it. At that moment, though, there's something rustling next to the window, and I try to groan over it. Oh, fuck. The, the bear looks at me, bewildered and annoyed. What? Now my dream seems to even more. Now my dream seems even more ridiculous that I'd so easily been able to run off. Everything's fallen asleep. Just take it slower. Brian sighs even louder and gets to work on my left arm anyway. This time he doesn't yank my arm out though, and lets me slowly move it on my own. Oh my god. It's not nearly as bad as my right arm, which is still violently tingling, but I have to grit my teeth as I move it to rest on my chest. Luckily, my legs are fine, and I'm able to move them easily after Brian takes them out. It makes me worry about what I'm going to try since I'm not nearly as strong as I should be. Brian is clearly on guard as he helps me sit up from the contraption, keeping his distance as he holds onto my arm. I sit there a moment, letting the circulation return back to my limbs as I try not to fall over from the dizziness. Brian finally gives a growl of annoyance and pulls me off the wooden platform. I realize that this is the moment I have to make my move. There's nothing nearby for me to grab, so instead I swing with everything I have to smash my fist up against the side of Brian's face. Something cracks in my hand and pain runs up my arm, so he just broke a finger. I gasp and cringe as Brian grunts. Brian pauses, then slowly brings his hands up to feel the side of his face. I guess I'd had hoped that I would be able to knock him out with one punch. But doing that as an otter to a bear, especially a bear like Brian, would have been quite the feat. Brian does seem stunned though, and that's all I need as I take in a huge breath and scream as loud as I can. Kutsu! Oops. Brian whirls on me, swinging his fist along with me. I duck immediately, covering my head with one arm, the other still locked in Brian's grasp. He only partially misses, his fist catching the top of my head and my arm. It knocks me to the ground and I sit there in a daze. I don't have long to collect myself because Brian is pulling a foot back to kick me. Shut up! I roll to the side and I start trying to back away while I'm crouched, but Brian yanks me up by my arm, my head jerking back with the force. Now I'm starting to wonder if Kudzu ended up leaving. If that is the case, then I'm definitely dead, because there's no way I'm going to break his grasp. As I'm thinking this, the door bangs open. Brian is in the middle of drawing his fist back when it happens and he freezes, looking over at the door. Kudzu stands there, his eyes wide behind his back, his black mask, chest heaving. He's scared, I can tell, but Brian's shock gives me the opening I was looking for. I reach in between his legs and grab his balls. Weirdly enough, the first thought I have is about how fucking big it is. My god, Chase. It takes both of my hands to wrap around it fully, and when I do, I twist and yank down as hard as I can. I pour all my fear and anger into the attack, snarling as I do. The scream that Brian lets out is so high-pitched, I feel like every glass in the trailer is going to explode. This attack is all I have left, so when his retaliation comes, I don't do anything to defend myself. Luckily, it's not a punch or a kick, but rather he grabs the fur on the back of my head, along with my shirt, and tries pulling me back. His face stretches back as I stubbornly hold on, and just yank down even harder. His sack is stretched and distorted so badly, it's barely even recognizable as balls. His scream suddenly cuts off with the sound of a deep, sickening smack. Immediately, Brian's body crumbles onto me as he falls to his hands and knees. It happens in a way that he's splayed over me, his face inches from mine. I have time to smell his gag-inducing breath before the sound happens again. This time, I see Good swinging something down hard from overhead, and Brian's head jolts. I watch as his eyes lose their focus on me, and he slumps down. I turn my head sideways as he comes to rest on my body, crushing the air from my lungs. Kud is there immediately and pushes Brian's body to the side to the point of being able to pull me out. He pulls me into a sitting position next to him. Are you okay? He's shaking and I can hear his ragged breathing in my ear. The contrast between being engulfed in Brian's stench to smelling Kud's shampooed fur and peppermint breath is striking. I can't speak and instead I lean against Kud and wrap my arms around him as I sob. Kud holds me as he looks me over. Can you walk? I nod silently as I press my face into the fur on his shoulders. Alright, come on, we can't stay here. He stands slowly, keeping me in the embrace as he guides me towards the door. I don't remember much about the walk back to Kud's house, aside from stilted flashes of dirt and sagebrush. It's dark and hot and my shirt immediately starts to stick to my sweaty fur. My legs are so numb I don't even know if I'm moving them right. Kud has to hold on to me the entire way so I don't fall over. Crickets chirp all around us, but every few minutes I hear shouting and screams in the distance. I try to look over my shoulder to see if Brian is coming after us, but Kud grunts and tells me to keep watching my steps. Some circulation has returned to my legs, and I'm able to at least match Kud's stride over the uneven dirt road. Still, it feels like thousands of needles are stabbing up my feet and legs in waves with every step I take. I'm genuinely afraid that I'm going to wake up any second and find myself still stuck in Brian's trailer. None of this seems real. I'm still watching my feet and the ground, so I don't notice Kud's house until I almost kick the bottom step to his rusty trailer. Just the sight of a trailer ascending chills up my spine, even though Brian's trailer looks very different compared to Kud's. We stand in front of the door for a while as a raccoon fishes through his pockets for his keys. It's made extra difficult with me hanging on to him. I can stand on my own feet if you... Got it. Kud whips out a small, gold-colored key before sliding it into the lock. Once we're inside, Kud immediately kicks the door closed behind us before reaching back to turn the deadlock. The inside of Kud's trailer is the opposite of its exterior. It's brightly lit and tidy, nothing like Brian's place. It's a little cramped, as any trailer would be, but the furniture is arranged neatly and the kitchen is spotless. Everything looks way newer than the trailer is on the outside. I imagine the raccoon did a lot of work to get it to look like this. Kud quickly guides me to a small love seat and makes as if to lay me there. I put a hand against his chest, feeling my stomach turn. Wait, I think I'd rather sit up. Do you need anything? Food? A drink? Kud's looking into my eyes with his dark browns, the brows above them furrowed in deep concern. I nod slowly so as not to upset my stomach again. Just water, please. Sure. Kud quickly hurries off into the kitchen and I slowly lean into the cushions behind me. I'm not tired at all, but I feel numb, and not just physically. My arms throb and feels like the leather straps are still bound around my wrists. My foot. It even feels like they're being pulled by an invisible force. Like, if I relaxed, my arms would float back into that fixed position. I shudder, hugging my body, then looking around, trying to find something else to focus on. A grouping of 3 picture frames on a small side table next to the love seat catches my attention. From where I'm sitting, I can see Kud is one of them, beaming at the camera. It's actually kind of weird to see him smiling like that. There's an arm around his neck, and I start to lean over a bit to see who it is. Here. Kud appears in front of me again, holding out a glass of water. I straighten back against the cushions. Once I take the glass, he holds out his other hand with 2 white pills resting in the black pad of his palm. Acetaminophen, if you're in pain. I definitely am, so I take it and the glass without a word and swallow it down. You should also take food with that, because you can get stomach bleeding. For a second, my stomach sours, and I feel like it's gonna come back up again, but only for a second. Kud steps back and watches me. Even though his face maintains its stoic, almost glare, I see his hands fidgeting together in front of his stomach. I nod weakly at a recliner across from me. You want to sit? Or something? Kud seems to consider, then walks over to the recliner. He sits on the very edge of the cushion, back rigid, continuing to stare at me. I take another sip of water, less this time so as not to upset my stomach. It looks like he wants to say something, but keeps silent, lips pressed together. Kud watches me the whole time. What's wrong? Kud opens his mouth, then closes it, thinking before opening it again. Are you okay? Yeah, sort of. I mean, I'm not gonna die, I think. I'm not really sure if I'm completely okay. Everything still feels numb. My thoughts feel sluggish too, and something that's been nagging at the back of my mind since I got here suddenly bubbles up to the surface. Did you call the police? I absent-mindedly reach for my phone in my pocket, but it's not there. I have no idea where it is at this point. Was it still at Leo's house? There's a tight look of consternation on Kutsu's face. Phones aren't working. Even my landline isn't working. My foggy brain tries to process this. What? Why did the phone lines... Why? Did the phone lines break or something? Kud shakes his head. I don't know. Should we walk to my car or something and drive to Peyton? I look back out to the pitch black window. We need to tell someone right now. Janice and Leo are still out there. There's no way Janice hasn't been found by now. There should be police everywhere. Where are the cops? I turn back to Kud, feeling sick again. Kud doesn't say anything, and he's got a strange look on his face, like he's trying to figure out how to tell me something. Finally, he stands up. I'll figure out something. Listen, I think you need to get some rest. I frown. But we need to get someone out here. What if Brian comes after me? I shrink in on myself at that thought, feeling goosebumps erupt over my arms. Kud steps over to me and awkwardly reaches out to put a hand on my shoulder. You'll be fine. Do you want to lay down in my bed? I don't say anything, my head still trying to catch up. It's a waterbed, Kud adds, as if that makes the offer more tempting. He thinks. You hungry? I have some muffins. It might help you get to sleep. I shake my head. Are they pot muffins? What? No, I want to get the fuck out of here. A loud pop makes me jump and I stand up. I'm not sure what I'm about to do, but Kud reaches out gently to hold onto me before pulling me away from the window. Faintly, I can hear some shouting outside, but it's far away. What was that? Is someone shooting? I look at Kud, starting to feel desperate. He puts an arm around me, at the same time moving towards the end of the trailer, where a big bed is tucked in. I don't know. A lot of things are happening right now, so I think we should stay here to be safe, okay? For now, at least. I hold on to the raccoon, unsure of what to do. Listen. He holds me by both arms, and I look back at him. You gotta trust me that I can't leave right now. No, that we can't leave right now. I'll explain it all after you've rested for a bit. He pauses. I can tell you're not really here right now. Here right now? You'll feel better once you wake up, alright? The thought of laying down is tempting despite feeling like I'm going insane. If I sleep, I don't have to think. Just blank my mind and rest. My head is buzzing and I feel like laying down might straighten things out. Kud gently but firmly forces me to sit down on the bed. Despite his slender build, I can feel the strength in his lean muscles. But what about Brian and Duke? Kud slowly pushes me back down onto the bed, and the water underneath the surface sloshes faintly. I haven't been on an actual waterbed for years. Carl used to have one. Where is Carl? It's gonna be a theme. Where's Carl? Where is everyone? I want to go back to the motel and find my friends again, but Kud seems adamant on keeping me here. I got Leo's gun. Saw it on the ground when I went to check on you guys. He must be able to tell from the look on my face that I'm not at ease because he reaches out again to rest a hand on my chest. It's still awkward, but it's comforting at least. I'll be here all night. Nothing's gonna happen. That does make me feel better, at least well enough to maybe get some sleep. Okay. I stare at the ceiling as I lay back. I still feel numb, but in a way that helps me blank my mind. In what feels like less than a minute, I pass out. I feel like if I keep walking along the train tracks, I'll be able to find my way out of here. I make sure to walk in the middle, using the planks like stepping stones. The steel rails on either side of me feel like some sort of barrier, a protection to whatever it is that's out there. I feel a presence in front of me, though, a sort of pressure that builds as I continue to walk. I look up. I can see that it's coming from a weird grove of trees that bunch up around the train yard. Something is crouched in front of that grove, staring at me from the trees. I keep walking, though, because for some reason I don't feel like I have anything to worry about as long as I stay on the tracks. I notice something else behind the hunched figure. A few bulky objects hang from the trees. I know what they are before I can make them out. I keep staring at them as I draw closer, ignoring the thing that's watching me as I do, hearing it breathe as I pass. Now I can see that there are several bodies hanging from the trees. They're of all shapes and species. Some hang by their necks, others by wrists or ankle. One of them passes me within a few feet, and I notice it doesn't have legs, both of them cut off at the thigh. It's a wolf, and he dangles by one of the stumps. Blood stains his dusty cream-colored pants and shirt all the way up to his face. As I pass him, he slowly turns on the rope, as if he's following my progress. I look down at the corpse's face, the mouth hanging open, eyes wide. It's like he wants to tell me something important. I can feel my body again, but it's numb and heavy. Slowly, I open my eyes and see the beige ceiling of Kud's trailer. I flick my eyes to the right and see Kud there, but only his back. He seems frozen, like he's in the photo. He's not even breathing. I can see the window very well from here, but from the small corner, I see eyes. When I wake up, Kud is next to me in the bed, his back to me, one of his ears folded under his head. Having been with Leo for a few years, I know that can be pretty painful when you wake up. So, I reach out and try to slowly adjust Kud's ear from under his head, but he immediately wakes up. He makes a funny, snorting sound before suddenly jerking up halfway off the bed, looking back at me. I smile sheepishly. Sorry, I was trying to fix your ear. Kud reaches up, poking at the ear. Ow, thanks. I notice at the bedside table that there's a small plate with what looks like a blueberry muffin on it. Kud notices and reaches out for it. You want to eat? I ate a couple earlier myself. I didn't realize how hungry I was. He lowers his ears. Still one left, though. His stomach has settled for the most part, so I take my plate from him. My stomach has settled. Thanks. It's still dark outside, from what I can see. Did we sleep through the whole day? I realize that I've completely lost track of time. What time is it? Kud reaches over to the bedside table, grabbing his phone. 2:30 in the morning. I rub my face. Did we sleep through the day or something? No, you were asleep for like 2 hours. Really? It felt like it had been days since what happened at Brian's trailer. Yeah, I found you around midnight. Kud turns nimbly on his rear on the bed, facing me with his legs crossed. How are you feeling? I'm okay. Kud gives me a long, hard look. Again, he has that expression of wanting to say something, but he's holding back. What is it? Kud lets out a breath. Listen, I'm not going to ask what happened with Brian, but if you ever want to talk about it, talking about Brian is the last thing I want to do, and I can feel the threat of violent shivers come up my spine just thinking about him. Kud reaches out one of his black hands to rub my shoulder, awkward and comforting as always. I've been through some stuff myself. Kud catches himself. Not saying I know what you went through, but I know what it can feel like having something really fucked up happen to you. I don't think I've ever seen Kuzu stumble over his words like this. I mean, I'm not trying to say that it's comparable if he, uh, Kid trails off, seemingly stunned at his own lack of delicacy. Oh, yeah, that's delicacy. For the first time since I've left the trailer, I feel a little bit like laughing. I reach up to rub Kazu's own arm, feeling like I need to comfort him now. No, it's fine, man. He didn't do anything like that. At least, not how you think he would. Kid watches me. I know he's not gonna ask, so I go on. He, has a thing for asphyxiation, I guess. Oh, jeez. Kid's eyes immediately go to my neck. I'm fine. It was just creepy. Creepy definitely doesn't begin to describe it, but I don't think now's the time to go into detail. I look out the window again, and aside from a few orange dots of light from faraway lampposts, it's black. So, can you tell me what's going on now? Kid runs a hand through his head fur, sighing heavily and looking out the window with me. Sure. Sure you don't want to wait until morning? I really don't think I'm going to be able to fall asleep again, honestly. Kid continues to stare out the window, and that's when I really start to wonder if what that I really start to wonder what it was that I missed. So, yesterday about noon is when I saw some weird stuff going on. Kid looks at me. Your friend, TJ, he came kind of jogging up the road. My mind flashes back to when I saw TJ running past the diner. I hadn't had time to really figure out what he was doing before Duke barged in. He said something was after him and that he needed to leave. He talked to you? Where is he? I feel the fur prickling up all over my body. The thought that TJ might be out there somewhere in chaos is terrifying. How could someone like him survive that? I'm certainly doing a terrible job. I don't know. He asked me if I had a car, but I don't, so he just kept up on the road. Up the road? There's nothing past Kudzu's trailer aside from Carl's house, and that's over a mile away. But Carl doesn't have a car anymore. He does. Maybe he's just staying with the Ram? I hope that's the case. After he left, though, is when things really started going crazy. Kud shakes his head. You know Dale? Yeah. Dale is the only other otter in town now that my family has left. He was walking up the road with a fucking shotgun, pointing it around and stuff. Is that out of the ordinary for Dale? I want to get back to the topic of TJ. If he went up the road, away from the town, we could still find him. But he was bleeding, had cuts on his leg, and his jeans were all ripped up. Oh. But he knocked on my door. I didn't open it, but he yelled through it saying that there was a meeting in the center of town. What kind of meeting? A fucked up one, apparently. Anyway, I went over to Leo's house to see if he was home. Then I saw the window. Katsu rubs the back of his neck, his ears lowering. Obviously, I knew some bad shit had happened, but I had no way of knowing what. Anyway, I went to the town center, hoping to see you two there, but just getting there was crazy. Kud looks back at me. Jeremy's house was burning, and Janice's house looked like it had been broken into. Jeremy's house? That was Jenna's house. Didn't run into anyone until I got to the townhouse. This whole thing is just... Did I say townhouse? Yeah, the townhouse. This whole thing is just getting bigger and bigger. While I'd been in Brian's trailer, everything had been falling apart outside. But why? What's going on? Kudzu shakes his head. I still don't know that, even after they told me. Who? The older guys, Mark and the mayor, said something about this having happened before, that it was our turn or something. Our turn? What does that mean? Kudzu shakes his head. I don't know. They just said it happened to their grandparents, that we had to be ready. Ready? Did they tell us what to do? Said to pray. Is that all they told you? Basically, and acted like it was nothing that we can do about it, and, Kudzu pauses. What? They said we can't leave and showed us a body. Kudzu stops talking. I stare. Like a dead body? Kudzu swallows and nods. What's going on? I feel my voice rise in pitch and Kudzu puts his hands as if trying to quiet me down. I don't know, but there were weird cuts on the body. They said we can't leave because something is out there that will try to stop us if we try to leave town. I stare at Kutsu, like a serial killer or something. They wouldn't say. They acted like it's a monster. Well then, they're lying, right? Kut is quiet for a moment, then shakes his head. After everything I've seen, I just don't know. Well, I think trying to figure out what the hell we're going to do. Well, we need to find Leo at least. Kut nods, like he's already thought about that. Then maybe get my car and at least try to leave. Kut doesn't say anything to that. But if we can't leave for whatever reason, then we at least have to find the rest of my friends. I look at Kut. Well, I do. I don't know what you're going to be. Kut gives me a wiry smile. Well, I don't have anywhere else to go aside from out here. Besides, I owe it to Leo to get him out. I feel a warm rush of relief flow over me, knowing that Kut will be with me. I don't think I'll be able to do any of this on my own. So we're gonna get Leo? Kut nods. Well, I am at least. You should really stay here. Get some more rest after what you went through. Of course, I'd rather stay here and hide until Kut comes back, but Leo tried to save me back at the diner, risked his life to do it. After everything Leo had done for me, I owe him that too. He kind of messed with your friends so that they wouldn't contact you, so do you really owe him that? No, I'm gonna go with you. Kut shakes his head. I don't think so. It'll make it easier if it's just me. Kut shifts, looking towards the kitchen. Besides, I have Leo's gun with me in case something goes wrong. He was my boyfriend. I can't just sit here while you save him. Kut pauses. Listen, I know Leo, and I know he would never want me to bring you into something like this. Yeah, well, Leo not wanting me to do something never stopped me before. Getting defiant like this is making me feel better. It gives me a purpose again. Kut looks like he's about to shake his head again, but I continue. Besides, it might help things out. One of us could go in while the other distracts Duke or something. Kut looks unsure, so I press my advantage. And if something goes wrong, one of us would be there to help the other. Kut pulls on one of his whiskers. Maybe, if it's just Duke there. He might not even be there. He might be at Brian's trailer or somewhere else around town. Kut sighs, then looks me right in the eyes. Are you sure you want to do this? I'm not, but I nod anyway. We try to keep off the road in the bush on our way to Duke's house. Despite our situation, the biggest thing on my mind right now is ticks. Funny how the mind works. The faint shouts and yells coming from the town are more frequent now. Another pop comes from the distance. It reminds me of the gun Kut has tucked into his waistband. He's never used one before, and it took us a solid couple of minutes to decide if he should even stick it there. Another pop. I can't help but think that that's where the motel is, where Jenna might be. Here, though, not much out of place aside from the smell of smoke on the breeze. That is until we come across a body hanging from a tree, about 100 yards from Duke's house. I'm the first to notice it, and when I do, I gasp and instinctively reach for Kut. He catches my hand, then looks up as he holds on to me. It's high up, maybe 15 feet, but from the markings on the fur, I think it's a fox. Oh, Jesus! Kut whispers next to me. I look away, feeling my stomach turn again. What the hell? How did he get up there? I look back and see that he's hanging by his wrists. I don't think he could have done that himself. Yeah. We both stare at him for a little while longer, long enough to notice that the long vertical slashes down his back. Those are the same cuts I saw on the other guy. Kut whispers distractedly. But who put him up there? Kut's silent and I keep staring at the guy, the first dead guy that I'd ever seen. Suddenly, all my motivation to get to Leo starts to evaporate. Kut rests a hand on my shoulder, and I jump. Sorry. Kud pats me. You alright? I'll take you back, okay? That sounded like the best idea in the world right now. I hesitate. When I think of Leo, I imagine him in the same situation as I was with Brian. Duke didn't seem as fucked up, but I have no idea what he's capable of. That thought makes me feel as if my heart is dropping through the ground, so I grit my teeth and shake my head. No, I'm okay. Kud looks at me closely, then nods. Okay, let's move back towards the road though. I don't think anyone is around right now anyway. I want to move towards the road too, mainly because I'm actually starting to worry that moving further away from the town really is dangerous. Duke's house is dark as we approach it. As we get closer though, I see flashes of light coming from the window well. We both crouch next to the house, behind a small cluster of sagebrush. Alright, so all I can really think to do is knock on the door. See if he's there. I swallow. You'd stay hiding, of course, but if he does come out, I don't know. I may try to put him down right there. Then I'll come out and help. Kudzu lets out a low chuckle. Yeah, but again, I'm not sure if that's what I'll do. We might be able to talk him out of this. Yeah, I don't have much faith in that plan. But if he isn't there, well, we'll probably go in and find Leo, right? Okay. My heart rate picks up and I realize how close we are to making this happen. I start to have second thoughts. Maybe we should have at least looked for the sheriff. Maybe we should have gone straight to the motel. Alright. I can tell Kudzu is nervous too, as he wipes his hands on his tank top before standing up slowly. Just watch from here. If he comes out with his gun though, I'm not gonna try anything. He hesitates. And if I get shot or something, don't help. Just run back to my house and start looking for your other friends, I guess. Now I'm really starting to feel unprepared for all of this. Everything is moving way too fast. There isn't any time though. We have to save Leo as soon as possible. There's no telling what Duke might be doing with him. As Kud starts to move away, I get the urge to hug him. He's done so much for me already, saving me and now trying to save Leo. But by now, he's already halfway across the yard to the house. I hold my breath and watch as Kud's dark form melts into the blackness of the house. It's like he's being swallowed up by it in a way. After a few moments, I hear him knock on the door. I listen, trying to breathe through my mouth instead of my whistling nose so I can better hear what's going on. Kud knocks again, much more loudly. Hey, it's Kud. I need some help. I don't know why I'm making that voice. Actually, it's because my nose is stuffed up. I look up and down the road, worried someone's going to hear his shouting. There's a slight rustling behind me, and I look back, eyes wide. I don't see anything at first, but then I feel like there's a shape behind another grove of sagebrush about 20 feet back. Something crouched, the moonlight defining its shape through the brush. I squint, completely stopping my breathing. It looks like it has a tail, a really thick one, like an otter. Was it Dale? I can't even tell if it's really a person, though. Chase! Kudzu whisper shouts, and I jump before stumbling to my feet. The shape behind me doesn't move at all, and I try to reassure myself that it's probably a rock. I jog over to Kudzu as he tries the door, trying not to think too much about what I just saw. Locked. He looks around for a while, then starts moving down the side of the house. Look for a window. Are you gonna break one? Maybe. Should only take us a few minutes to sweep the house. Then we can get the hell out. We quickly spot a window on the back of the house. Kudzu looks in and bites his lip. I'm just worried that Duke might still be in there with a gun or something. He bends over, picking up a sizable rock. Well, not much of a choice. If I say run, run. Got it? I nod and Kud lifts the rock above his head before smashing it through the window. The sound is probably the loudest fucking thing I've ever heard in my life. I cover my own ears, like that's gonna lessen the sound. Cud jumps to the side, away from the window, reaches back to hold on to me. The fur on Cud's body fizzes up, and I see his ears perk up as far as they can go. Once the final tinkling of the glass subsides, we both listen. My ears are ringing, but the only other sound I can hear are the chirping of crickets. Finally, Cud lets out a soft breath. All right, let's go. I help him push out a few more shards of glass. Once that's done, the raccoon hoists himself up more carefully, maneuvering around the sharp, broken edges. He turns and reaches out to me, helping me through in the same fashion. Even though I'm trying to be careful, when I bring my arm in, it drags along a jagged edge of glass sticking out from the side. I grimace, the fierce pain taking a moment to really set in. Shit, are you okay? He grabs my wrist as he can pull my arm up to examine it by the moonlight and suck in a breath. Oh fuck, you might need stitches for that. That's when I see the blood starting to ooze out from the fur. It's only about an inch long, but the amount of blood coming out is surprising. Damn it, I'll take care of it after we find Leo. I pull my arm away, despite Kuzu still trying to take a look at it. Alright, I'll see if we can't find something to wrap it up. Kuzu starts fumbling along the walls to find a light switch. I'm surprised to see a fairly quaint and tidy home. Unlike Kuzu's trailer, though, there's barely anything in it. There's a single sofa and a very old-fashioned TV in what I presume is the living room. There's a fireplace and a few dirty-looking chairs on the other end of the room. In front of us is a long hallway with a few doors on both sides. Alright, check every room and door. It's not a very big house. Kutsu sets off down the hall. Look for stairs. I feel like he'd be in a basement. As Kutsu goes into a room to the left, I peer into the one on the right. It looks like a bedroom with a single twin in the middle of the room. I take a few steps in, looking around and not seeing anything else. When I turn back around, I do see some picture frames hung up on the wall. Seems kinda odd for someone like Duke to have those up. In the pictures, I see a much, much younger Duke, or at least a pre-meth Duke. Next to him is a female weasel, her smile small compared to Duke's tooth-bearing grin. She's in the 3 other pictures next to that one too. Weird. I wouldn't have thought anyone would want to be with Duke, especially someone as pretty as that weasel. I move on to the next room, and this one is completely empty, painted white. The next door is the last one on the right side of the hall. This is the only door that's closed, and, like the last room's walls, it's painted white. It's taller, and seems to be a bit thicker than the other doors. When I try the doorknob, it's locked. Cud? I whisper, and Cud pokes his head out from the other door just behind me. What's up? I point to the door in front of me. This one's locked. Cud stands in front of the door and presses his ears to it. I see his hand hover in front of the crack between the door and its frame. Then he reaches out to my hand and pulls it up to the same spot. He looks at me. You feel that? I'm about to say no, but that's when there's a noticeable cooler draft coming from within. It's kinda cold. That's the basement. I bet my ass that Leo's down there. I swallow. Should we try to break down the door or something? I don't... Kutsu's ears suddenly perk straight up and his eyes widen. My fur bristles out. What? That's when I hear it. The crunching of gravel. Kutsu grabs my arm and starts pushing me back down the hall towards the back room with the broken window. And at that moment, I hear the knob turn, and suddenly my path changes directions as Kud steers me into the room on our left. It's one of the rooms that I hadn't looked into myself, and I see that it's a storage room. Boxes are everywhere, and so is a bunch of junk. I guess that explains why all the other rooms are so spotless, and that he's not using his basement for storage. Kutsu looks around desperately for a moment, then pulls me in behind a mound of boxes just as I hear the door swing open. The problem ain't that he got away. Duke is practically screeching when he comes inside, as he's waiting to be indoors before he yelled. Underneath Duke's pattering feet on the wooden floor, I hear 2 loud thumps, and I know immediately who it is. My blood runs cold and my breathing seems to stop, worried that they'll be able to hear even that. If he's behind all of this, he's gonna make things so much worse. Huh. I hear a non-committal grunt from the bear. I shudder at the sound of his voice again. I feel a light touch on my back as Kud rests his hand there, trying to comfort me. What do you mean, ha? You like that dreams you're having right now? 'Cause trust me, it's gonna get a hell of a lot worse. I hear a smacking sound, which I imagine is Duke's tiny hand trying to slap Brian in the face. What the fuck you staring at? Duke's grating, nasally voice echoes through the carpetless house. Your window! There's a moment of silence as I hear some shifting around. Then suddenly I hear Duke's footsteps bustle down the hall. I duck more deeply behind the boxes as he passes the doorway to our room. Fuck, is someone fucking in here? Brian's lumbering down the hall, basically standing right in front of our room. I hear 2 more thuds and a bunch of rustling as Duke ineffectively beats at the bear's bulk. Fucking idiot. No, that's Brian. Fucking idiot! They broke in! Yeah. I hear a jingle of keys as Duke continues to shout. Check every fucking room. I'll bet they broke through the basement window too. Fuck! Now that he says it, breaking through the basement window might have been a better idea. Looking through a crack in the boxes, I get a flash of the weasel walking past the door again. He's holding something long and shiny. I shrink back against the boxes, wondering how in the world I got here. I stare at the ground and also wonder if I'm about to have a heart attack. I focus on watching the blood seep from my arm, pulling on the wooden floor next to me. I hear a key go into the lock and a doorknob turn. I swear to God, if that wolf ain't down there, I'll blow your goddamn face off. Duke's voice fades away, accompanied by the receding footsteps down the stairs. The heavy footfalls of Brian start to move around slowly towards the other end of the hall. Kud moves his hands up my shoulder. I look at him and he holds his finger up to his lips, then points in the direction of the broken window. I don't want to move at all. In fact, I'd rather sit here and just disappear into the floor. Somehow, though, I'm able to force myself to my feet as Kud tugs me up. We move very slowly to the doorway, and there Kud holds up a hand, making me pause. I watch his ears perk, flickering in the direction of Brian. My hearing probably isn't nearly as good as his, but I'm still able to pick up the bear's heavy, labored breathing. I hear some shuffling, then more heavy footsteps. Kud freezes as we both listen to the bear move back into the hallway, then his footsteps fade away. I imagine he's moved into another room, and that's when Kud finally appears around the corner. I hold my breath, but Kud reaches back and grabs my wrist, pulling me into the hallway. It's empty, and as quietly and as quickly as we can, we move to the end of the hall to stand next to the broken window. Kud sticks one leg out the window before balancing his entire weight on both his hands that are resting on the bottom ledge. Like a gymnast, he moves the other leg out and quickly drops to the ground outside, his head narrowly missing the top ledge. I don't know if it's because he's a raccoon or an actual gymnast, but there's no way in hell that I'm going to be able to do that. Kud already reaching for me, though, his eyes wide with frantic worry. I can hear shuffling sounds behind me again, coming from one of the rooms. Kud reaches out towards me, then suddenly waves his hands wildly in the direction of the room right next to me. Heart pounding, I almost stumble through the doorway into the room. This one has a few chairs stacked up against the side of the wall, and one looks like a closet door. Brian's footsteps thump down the hall again, and I almost gasp as I get a glimpse of his massive shadow through the doorway. But then it disappears as I hear his footsteps move into the room right next to me. From just inside the room, I see Kutsu slowly pop back up from the window, then motion frantically towards himself. My legs are like jelly, though, and I hesitate. Then there's a raspy dragging sound in the room next to me that almost makes me jump. It's like the sound of a cardboard box being slid across the floor. I hear Brian mumbling. Definitely not paint. I force I force my numbed feet to stumble out into the hallway towards the window. Kid reaches for me, his eyes desperate, but then I hear the shuffling behind me again. Why is he moving so fast? Automatically, I step back into the room while Kid continues to beckon to himself. Brian's lumbering footsteps move down the hallway slowly in my direction. Kid has definitely ducked back down, out of sight. I'm alone and trapped. I remember the closet at the last minute and lunge towards it, not having enough time to worry about the sound I make. Somehow, the closet door glides open with hardly any sound, as if the hinges had just been recently greased. I step inside, then swing the door shut, trying not to let it snap closed. At that exact moment, Brian's lumbering gait enters the room. I shrink back against the wall, holding my hands to my mouth, trying not to breathe. My heartbeat is so loud, it's the only thing I can hear as it pounds in my ear. I hear coughing and grunting coming from behind the door. Then it goes quiet. I wait, unsure of whether the bear has left or not. Slowly, I walk up to the door, pressing the side of my head gently against it. I listen, trying to see if I can hear anything. I swallow, then reach up the rest of my hand on the doorknob. I think about making a run for it, maybe trying to dive through the window. I might get hurt, but if I'm able to get away, I wait for what feels like 2 or maybe 3 minutes. It's complete silence on the other side. I wait even longer, to the point where I'm sure that there's no way that someone like Brian could just keep quiet that long. So as slowly as I can, I push the door open and immediately come into contact with something on the other side before it's even a foot open. It's soft, whatever it is, and the door almost bounces back from it. I wait for a moment then, as I'm starting to realize what just happened. A massive bear paw reaches around the edge of the door. In the next half second, the door is ripped open, and I find myself facing Brian. A weird numbing feeling spreads down from my crotch and into my legs, and I sag in front of the bear. My mind refuses to think, to even process what my eyes are seeing. What it does process is pure terror. Brian seems to have trouble understanding what he's seeing as well. He stares at me for a few seconds, his eyes practically crossing as he focuses on me. Then he grins. Hey, you. I can't respond. Instead, I press back into the closet, flattening myself against the wall as he reaches out to me. Still, there isn't much I can do as he grabs the front of my shirt and yanks me out the closet. He starts to pull me towards the doorway, and as I stumble into the hall, I'm finally able to start trying to move again. Seeing the window, I lunge towards it, but Brian's grip is too strong. I hear a few popping sounds as some threads in my shirt give out and Brian yanks me back violently. Everything goes black as something massive knocks up against the side of my face, and the next thing I know, I'm thrown down the hall, flat on my back. I'm staring up at the ceiling, watching it slide sideways above me, like it's painted on a treadmill. My right foot is hiked up in the air, and I realize that Brian's dragging me along the floor now, back towards the end of the hall. The fur on my back glides easily along the hardwood, my shirt scrunching up to my chest. Brian stops as he reaches the white door, pushing it open. Dizzily, I look up at the window, wondering if Kutsu is there and if he can see me. I reach towards it, but that's when I'm being dragged again, and I land painfully on the first step. I gasp and turn sideways to see that Brian drags me clumsily down the rest of the steps. My spine isn't taking the rest. My spine isn't taking the rest of the corners. I gasp and turn sideways so that Brian drags me clumsily down the rest of the steps. My spine isn't taking the rest of the corners. Okay, let's do this again. I gasp and turn sideways so that as Brian drags me clumsily down the rest of the steps, my spine isn't taking the rest of the corners. It's dark and the air turns cool and musty. We finally reach the bottom of the steps, pain pulsing at various points on my body from the rough handling. Brian starts dragging me again, and I finally realize that he's going to have me trapped again. He'll do whatever his sick mind thinks up, and there won't be anybody there to stop him. No! I moan and try to grab something, anything to stop me from being pulled deeper into the basement. My hand manages to latch onto a wooden beam next to the stairs. Brian grunts as my body snaps into full extension and we're brought to a halt. Come on, let go! He keeps clinging to the beam. I keep clinging to the beam, imagining that at any moment Kudzu is going to come running down the stairs, gun in hand. That comes to an end as Brian kicks me in the chest and I let go with a wheeze. You know you're the one making this harder on yourself. He starts dragging me again as I curl up and cradle my chest, vaguely hoping that he'd give me a heart attack and that I'd be free from all this. I swear to God, if you're lying to me, Leo, I'm gonna paint the ceiling with your fucking brains. Why am I still here if someone came to even to save me then? The sound of Leo's voice has me snapping my eyes open again. While it ain't quite as heartening as Kudzu barging in with a weapon, it's definitely relieving to hear his voice again. I'm dragged through another doorway into a brightly lit room, the fluorescent lights buzzing overhead. As I come to a stop on the cement floor, the room goes quiet and I squint against the sudden light. The walls on either side are covered in shelves that are filled with silver tins and soup cans. A storage room of some kind. Duke is standing in the middle of the room next to a metal chair, staring at me. In the chair is Leo. His arms are down on his sides and I can see that they're both handcuffed to the side of the chair. His feet are similarly strapped to the chair's legs. His face is one of shock as he also stares at me, open-mouthed. I stare back, even feeling weirdly self-conscious as everyone watches me. Duke breaks the silence. I knew it! Duke is snarling, but it's not at me. Instead, he's looking at Brian, his lips drawn back as he growls. This is what fucking happens! Brian scratches his head. What happens? Duke kicks at the air with his foot before stamping down on the hard cement that makes up the floor of the room. This! Leo wasn't supposed to know he got away. Well, I caught him, so what's the difference? Duke lunges at Brian, swinging his arms a few times to beat his fist uselessly against the bear's bulk. Brian flinches back anyway, letting go of my foot. Leo's still staring down at me, mouth slightly less open, and I have no idea what's going on in his mind right now. I suddenly realize how stupid it was to come here with Kudzu. Sure, saving Leo as soon as possible was important, but why had I thought that we could have done it alone? I should be in my car right now, halfway to Peyton, 20 minutes away from the cops. 20 minutes away from the cops. Instead, I'm in Duke's basement, about to be murdered. I slowly sit up, just as Duke seems to finish beating on Brian. Gasping, he turns to me. Fuck. Well, if you're here, I guess we'll just have to make use of you. He waves his hands loosely between me and Brian. Pick him up. Wait a second, just shut up. Brian picks me up roughly, almost encircling my chest with his hands alone as he pins my arms to my sides. He holds me in front of Leo, and Duke stands to the side between us. It's only now that I notice the puffiness in Leo's left eye, some crusted blood near his brow with some more coming from his lower lip. It's not terrible, but it's clear he's been hit a few times. As I watch him, I can see the fear in his eyes reflected back at me. That alone almost scares me more than the situation we're in. Ah, not smirking anymore, are you? Duke bares his teeth in Leo's direction. Been trying to wipe it off your face this whole time, and turns out this was all I needed to do. Duke gestures at me. You're a little fuck otter, huh? Leo closes his eyes and shakes his head. Why are you here? He mumbles it almost to himself. Duke leans in closer to the wolf. Why didn't you run if you got away? Leo opens his eyes. He's looking straight at me. I don't know if he expects me to answer, but the look of defeat on his face makes me feel like I have to. We wanted to save you. We didn't know where you were or what was happening. Duke suddenly leans away from Leo towards me, his eyes narrowed. We? Who's we? I feel my stomach drop as I realize that what I've just done. I mean all of us. I saw some of my friends out there before I came here, but I'm alone. Duke studies me closely. Was there anyone else up there, Brian? Brian is sulking behind me, letting go of my shoulders, occasionally to rub at his chin. Didn't see anybody except this otter. Duke looks up at the ceiling, like he's listening for footsteps or something. Duke snaps his attention back to Leo, and I notice his face is practically dancing with twitches and ticks. This is crazy. Leo enunciates each word through gritted teeth, his muzzle lowered so that he's looking up at Duke's eye to eye. Look at this. Look at everything you've done. It makes no sense. Duke lets out a high-pitched laugh. Crazy? You know what's crazy? Duke gestures at me again. Ask him what he saw out there. Duke turns to face me, swinging his hand from me to Leo. Go on, tell him. He doesn't believe me. The corner of Duke's eyes seem to have a mind of their own, like there's some kind of living creature under the surface, writhing around. Was it a little crazy? I stare at Duke, entranced, until Brian gives me a quick jerk. I saw a body. There were gunshots. Duke giggles. And that ain't half of it. Houses afire, people eating each other. You think I'm crazy for shooting Janice? But if you knew... But how the hell are we supposed to know why that is? Leo leans forward as far as bonds let him, eyes wide, almost pleading with Duke. This started when you got here. Duke lowers his voice dangerously, leaning back towards Leo, their noses almost touching. That doesn't mean shit. Leo speaks haltingly back at the weasel. Does this? Duke suddenly pulls a gun from the waistband of his pants and points it straight at my face. I'm barely able to comprehend it before Brian jumps to the side with me, out of the way of the gun. Fucking Christ, Duke! Don't point it at me! Leo almost stands up on his toes with the chair still attached to his body. Fur bristled out all over his body. Duke's lowered the gun, though I'm still watching Leo. Leo slumps back into the chair, trembling. Just stop, Duke! Just stop, Duke. I don't know anything. Duke stares for a moment at the wolf, frowning. Then he looks down at his gun as if contemplating something. Slowly, he looks at me, then points the gun at Leo's head. My heart jumps in my throat, and Brian has to hold on to me as I try to hold out my hands. Wait, what are you doing? Maybe it's just you, Otter. What? It's you I was seeing before you got here, and it was you I saw sneaking around at midnight. What the hell are you talking about? I feel my start to panic as I see Duke's finger tighten around the trigger. I don't know what's happening. Leo's doing his best to keep his head out of the line of fire, leading his head as far to the side as he can. Duke doesn't seem to be paying attention to him, though, instead keeping his eyes on me. Just explain to me why you think it's me. Maybe I can help. That seems to get some sort of reaction out of Duke, and he lowers the gun. Just a bit. The problem now, though, is that it's pointed at Leo's chest, and there's no way he can dodge that. Duke is studying me closely, as if trying to figure out what to say. You know this happened before. My mind races. The mass hysteria thing, like 100 years ago? Yeah, that's right. See, how do you know that? He looks closely at me. I'm relieved as he finally takes the gun away from Leo to be pointed at the ground. I did some research before coming here. I'm doing a news story on Echo for school. Duke is still eyeing me suspiciously. So, you know about the murder? I try to think back to my research about what exactly happened. It was a while ago now, and I'd planned to fill in the gaps when I got back to Pueblo. Kind of. It happened in the mine. Yeah, it did. And then people went nuts. I wait, but Duke doesn't go on filling the air with an awkward silence. I can see Leo's head look back and forth, probably trying to come up with a way to get out of this. I hope he's figured out something out, because I have no idea how I'm gonna do that. But do you know why? I'm trying to sift through Duke's psyche to figure out why he thinks this might be related to Leo and I. Duke's breathing has leveled off, and with his calmness, there's a feeling that we've managed to ride out the storm. My grandpappy lived through it all and stayed in the town after. Uh-oh? I notice Leo's not looking around anymore. Instead, his eyes are trained on the door behind me and slightly to my right. I want to look back, but Duke seems distracted right now, so I try to keep him engaged. Yeah, it happened weeks after the body was found, sort of built up till all hell broke loose. Leo nods his head slightly, eyes still on the door, and my heart leaps in my chest as I realize what might be happening. Do you know why that was? Duke shakes his head. There's something bad in the town. The earth's bad. The air's bad. Everything's tainted. So, you think something's in the air or water or something? I lean a bit to the left to try to keep Duke's eyes on me, away from Leo or the door. I don't know about that, but my grandpappy thought that 'cause they didn't catch the murderer, it planted some seeds in the bad dirt. Duke looks at the ceiling. And grew something terrible. Wasn't until they killed the guy that did it that it stopped. That's news to me. I didn't read anywhere that the murderer had been caught. Duke looks back down at me. So, I don't know what it is, if it's murder or guilt, or not catching someone that did wrong. I hear the softest sound of footpads against the floor behind me and pray that none of the others did. But it started when you got here, so you gotta forgive me for wondering if one of you did something bad. He's not too far off the mark. Duke starts to raise the gun again, and brought that guilt back to the poisoned land to grow the seeds again. Duke doesn't sound like himself at all, not even his recent crazed self. Still though, I don't want to admit it, I start to have an idea of what Duke might be getting at, how this all fits into our story. What was that kid's name a while back that died in the lake? He wasn't murdered. You sure about that? Yes. Am I not? Am I? I swallow hard, aware that some of the pieces don't fit, despite how disturbing the implications are. But that was years ago. Why didn't it start then? Why now? Duke shrugs. Maybe you wasn't guilty till now. Maybe kids don't understand what they've done. Maybe it's 'cause you left and it made it angry. But he wasn't murdered. You see it happen? No, but the person that did wouldn't ever do that. So am I talking to the wrong guy right now? Who was it? I look over at Leo again, swallowing hard. Who was it? Duke starts to raise the gun again, and what happens over the course of the next minute is too fast for me to comprehend until it's over. Leo explodes out of his sitting position, face twisted with rage as he bares his teeth in a full-on wolf snarl. Though his feet are handcuffed to the legs of the chair, he's able to lunge off the ground with his feet. He latches himself on Duke, slamming into the weasel with a painful crunch of flesh and metal on concrete. I gasp and watch as Leo starts ripping into Duke with his teeth. Duke screams and flails his arms around, apparently forgetting his weapon as it flies from his fingers. The gun slides across the ground to tap gently against the wall just 5 feet from me. Brian keeps a tight grip on me, though, but that's when I hear a clicking sound behind me. Brian does too, and he turns sideways, allowing me to see the source as well. And there stands Kut, both hands on Leo's handgun as he points it up to Brian's head. It clicks uselessly though, and Kut's face is a mix of terror, desperation, and confusion. The safety! Leo is still struggling on the ground with the screaming Duke lifting his mouth from the weasel's arm to shout at Kut. Kut's eyes snap to the gun in his hand, but Brian's already moving. He kicks at Kud's hands and it connects violently, sending the gun flying into the air to clap against the ceiling. Brian lets go of me at that point, reaching out to catch the gun. I'd say go for Duke's gun. Because no one's fighting over Duke's gun, I realize that might be my best chance. I lunge in the opposite direction. Clumsily, I scoop up the weasel's gun, turning it over in my hands until I am holding it in the right way. Brian, my gun! Leo's still tearing away at the weasel as Duke holds them up in Leo is still tearing away at the weasels, I'm assuming arms, as Duke holds them up in defense. I turn around, crouched back against the wall as I see Brian standing over a downed Kud. I can only pray that he hasn't killed him. I point the gun at Brian just as he turns around to face me. Seeing that he's about to get shot, the bear lunges at me, his massive paws stretching up towards me. Luckily for me, Duke never had the safety on, and the gun is loaded. I shoot him right in the face. The sound is so loud in the tiny room that my hearing goes out for a moment. This ringing. Brian crumbles to the floor and the room goes quiet. But only for a moment. An earthly howling sound comes from the bear as he slowly props himself up on his hands, looking back up at me. For a moment, I wonder if evil powers of Echo have brought him back to life somehow. But no, there's a bloody hole right above his blunt nose, and I can see the white of bone peeking through the red. Somehow, the bullet hadn't even pierced his skull. Shakily, I raise the gun again, but Brian rolls away to the door, and with speed that shouldn't be possible for a bear his size, he's gone. I stare for a moment, wondering if I should run after him, but a snarl next to me as me pointing the gun at Duke instead. Leo's still tearing into his arm. Yeah, it was his arm. As Duke hollers at the top of his lungs, trying to cover his face. Leo, stop! I've got the gun on him. Leo looks up at me with his wild eyes, pausing for a moment before slowly letting go of them. God, I forgot how to pronounce that word. Mustelid? The weasel's arms, bloody drool hanging from his chin. I know how to say that word too. I try to ignore that and keep the gun trained on Duke's head as Leo flops to the side in his chair. After seeing how little the bullet had affected Brian, I'm not so confident it will do much damage to Duke. Maybe bears just have thicker skulls, but I'm more worried that the gun is just shit. Duke doesn't move though, so he lays back against the concrete, eyes closed, gasping for breath. His arms are to his sides, both of them leaking blood on the ground. Leo really did a number on them. He definitely needs to go to the hospital. A hand touches my shoulder and I jump. I look back and see that it's Kudzu. Sorry, are you okay? Leo's gun hangs loosely from one of his hands. Kud, you fucking saved my life. I grin at him and I almost sob with relief. I want to hug him, but I have to keep the gun on Duke. Of course, I'm sorry I didn't stop him when he took you. I wasn't sure what to do. He touches my shoulder again. I can feel him trembling. Don't worry about it. We're okay now. Can someone get me out of these handcuffs, please? My arms are fucking killing me. Killing you? You ripped mine apart. Duke is practically sobbing, now curling up on his side to hold his arms in his chest. Fuck you, asshole. Leo spits at him as he tries to adjust his positions on the floor. Where are the keys, Duke? Duke takes a shuddering breath and holds it in for a few seconds before answering. Right pocket. Kud walks over and kneels next to the weasel, shifting through his pocket. Keep an eye on the door, Chase, in case Blubbergut comes back. I try to angle myself so as to keep an eye on both the door and Duke, even though I'm pretty sure the latter is through at this point. Kud pulls the small metal key out before moving over to Leo, fumbling around for a good while before the handcuffs finally drop to the ground. Leo kneels there for a moment, wringing out his wrists. Are you okay? He smiles at me. I'm a little sore, but I think I'll be alright. He gets unsteadily to his feet, taking a pair of handcuffs up with him before bending quickly to give me a kiss on the head. I'm so happy you're okay, Chase, and thank you, Kid. He slaps the raccoon on the back before turning his attention to the weasel. Duke notices and quickly curls up tighter. I was just trying to help everyone. Ugh! Leo grabs him by the bloodied arms before yanking him violently to his feet. The weasel screams, double as the wolf twists those arms behind his back, handcuffing them. Why the hell do you have so many handcuffs anyways? Duke starts sobbing again until Leo whips him around and slaps him across the face. Duke sways, stunned by the power of the blow, before Leo brings the hands back and hits him on the other cheek. Shut the fuck up, Leo. Leo ignores Cud as he pulls the chair back up and throws Duke into it so violently it almost tips over. Please, I'm sorry, I just want to help. Duke cowers as Leo raises his hands again. Realizing how tightly I'm holding onto the gun, and though I'm pointing it at the ground now, I'm sure to take my finger off the trigger. While Leo's violence is a little disturbing, it's almost comforting to have him throw his weight around after how the weasel had threatened us. No, it isn't. Kid, on the other hand, doesn't look comforted at all. He's still trembling from the earlier fight, and he's pulling at the fur on his chin as he watches Leo. Careful, Leo. Let's just take him to the cops or something. Cud looks over his shoulder at the door. Going to Peyton was probably a better idea, now that I realize how messed up everyone is. Yeah. I mean, if that monster they're all talking about isn't real, would have been better to risk that than get involved with these idiots. I hadn't even thought about that supposed thing keeping everyone from leaving the town. It seems silly now that we let a stupid story like that keep us here. Leo doesn't seem to be listening. You're a fucking lunatic, Duke. Why shouldn't I just kill you right now? Leo! Leo looks over his shoulder at us, finally shaking his head at Kudzu conspiratorially. Kud goes silent as Leo goes back to staring down at the weasel. Now explain to us what the hell is going on. Leo leans in closer with his bloody muzzle, and Duke cringes back. Tell the truth, and maybe I'll let you go. Leo glances at me. I won't kill you, at least. He's trying to make it clear to me that he's just trying to scare Duke. At least that's what I hope he's doing. I already explained. Duke's eyes dart back and forth between us. The way he's kicking his feet around with a high-pitched, whiny voice makes me think of a child. A really ugly, malnourished child. I still feel a little bad for him, though. Remind me, because I was a little fucking distracted. Kud slides up next to me and sets his hand on my shoulder. You want to watch the door? I touch hand in acknowledgement and turn around to face the door. I don't really think Brian's going to be coming back, though. I told you, something bad's happening and we need to figure out what. Yeah. How did kidnapping us help anything? Duke sighs deeply and I glance over my shoulder at him to see him slumping in defeat. Last time this happened, it might have been caused by a murderer. By a murder, not the murderer. But that the guy got away with the murder. There's a moment of silence. Okay? Leo's tone demands that Duke goes on. So the guilt from the guy, or the worry in the town, or just the spirit, heck, I don't know, maybe all of that, but it came together to make everything go crazy. Okay, sure, but how does this have anything to do with us? I saw the otter sneaking around town before he says he got here. I look back again and see Duke looking at me. So is Leo. Seems kind of fishy to me, so I thought he might have something to do with it all. Was my only lead. Leo doesn't respond this time. I look back again and see that he's still looking at me. What is it? You told me yourself, Leo, that you saw him sneaking around too. It was someone else. How the hell do you know that? What are you guys talking about? Can you watch the door? I finally turn around. Leo leans one hand on the back of Duke's chair as he sighs. If you remember, Chase, I told you about how I thought I saw someone out my window that looked like you? Leo turns his glare back at Duke. Got drunk with this asshole and accidentally told him about it, too. We both saw it. Isn't that a little bit strange? Some other some otter came by the town that looked like Chase. What the hell else was it? Leo glances back at me, and I feel like there's some doubt in his eyes. I mean, you weren't here, right? Of course I wasn't. I know. Just making sure. Leo turns back to Duke. Why would that mean anything anyway? Duke looks around, visibly clenching his toes. I've heard stories about doubles, like doppelgangers or something. Oh, I said the word right and he said it wrong. Sure, but people talk about that shit happening back then, seeing themselves and stuff. Okay, so if we believe that shit, why would it mean he has anything to do with anything? Well, my grandpappy said that the guy that did it was in 2 or 3 places at once sometimes. There's a moment of silence as we all absorb that bit of information. Sounds like a load of shit to me, Duke. Duke jumps up in his seat. I'm just telling you what I know. So what's your solution to all this then? I don't know. It stopped when they got the guy. Duke cowers in his chair, then glances at me. Leo follows his gaze, and his eyes turn steely. Duke seems to notice Leo's sudden change in demeanor, but before he can do anything, he gets a massive slap from the wolf. Leo, stop! Duke immediately starts sobbing again and curls in on himself. Me? This fucker wants to get at Chase. It did seem that way. Did Duke think the only way to stop all these problems in the town was to kill me? ? Duke. Kid tries a different approach, his voice much gentler than Leo's. The problem with your theory is that Chase hasn't killed anyone. Right, Chase? Of course not. Of course not. So maybe we need to rethink things a little, huh? Or maybe we can do that in a fucking jail cell. We're going back to get my van, then we're gonna get the hell out of here. If we can. I'm still not sure about that. The thing the mayor was talking about. What thing? A monster or something. The mayor told us it's killing people, that they're trying to leave. Leo stares. Has the town really gone that fucking insane? Kid shrugs. There were bodies. Jesus. Leo looks around. Well, it still sounds like bullshit. But if there is anything, we'll be fine if we leave in a car. The motel is closer. We can use my car instead. Sure. Duke is still staring at me with a hard look. I get the feeling that despite all the things that we just told him, he's not buying it. Leo hauls the weasel off the chair, gaining a little squeak of pain from Duke as he forces him to break eye contact with me. What about the others? We're gonna try to find everyone we can before we leave, but the priority is to get ourselves to a police station. Leo pulls me to a stand in front of him before gesturing at Kutsu. Kud, take the gun. Safety's off now. Kud visibly frowns as I hand it to him. Yeah, sorry about that. It won't chase between us. I don't trust these fuckers to try anything, especially if Brian comes back. So with Kud leading the way, we make our way out of Brian's house and into the night. It's quieter this time around as we head onto the deserted night street. Actually, I'm gonna stop it right there because I have a really stuffed up nose right now, and it's making it really hard to talk. But yeah, a lot of stuff happened there, and some backstory into the town's history was revealed, having to do with a murder that happened in the mines about 100 years ago. But yeah, people, or at least Duke, seems to think that it might be connected to Chase. But, I mean, is it really? I mean, is there any evidence to suggest that? Aside from Chase's suspicious demeanor. But anyways, thank you all for listening, and hopefully we will have an episode out tomorrow. If I feel better, because I really hope I'm not getting a cold or the other very, very bad thing. But yes, thank you all for listening, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.